Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Board Game Buffet podcast, episode number 99.
Wow.
My name is Dean.
This is Graham.
Oh, Graham he's befuddled. He can't believe it. I was thinking the other day, I'm like, 99. But when you think about it, that's 99 of this podcast. And, then we had Talking Across the Game Board, which was another 80 episodes.
Yeah.
And, whatever videos that you've done and everything else, like it's been, I guess we could have added them together and said, this is whatever episode, 200 or whatever, because that doesn't include coffee talks or our top 10s.
So for me, I've done 80 Four Corners of the Board, 80 Talking Across the Game Board. I would say about 60 of these.
Maybe, yeah.
So up to over 200. I've done 130 videos on the Dice Tower, and then plus our top 10s and our live plays and all that. So yeah, I'm probably up to close to 400.
Yeah,
400, whatever.
Yeah, giving the Secret Cabal a run for their money. You look at I look at some other podcasts and content creators that are out there, and I look at their numbers like, wow, I'm like that. Those numbers are high. But I think like some of them, they put out stuff weekly. Okay. Yeah. I'm like, well, that's not going to happen. And I don't know how long their weekly episodes are. Maybe they're, 15, 20, 30 minutes. So I guess we make up for it in quantity of time versus number of episodes. But yeah, 99. This is it. Final one.
Yeah. So got one more episode to go, then we're done.
Yeah. A big, well, I thought we'd just stop with 99. Yeah. I've always had a fear of completion. So. But no,
100 will be coming soon.
Right. No, we're just kidding. Don't end your subscription feed. we're going to keep going on and got some ideas for some different stuff to add to it. We keep saying we're going to bring back the Iron Designer thing, which I do want to do. It just takes a lot of planning, and it's not just the planning, but it's the coordinating of getting people together to do it, because I would like to do it with like maybe a team-based sort of thing, or at least pairs of people against each other. Anyways, and enough of that.
But I will say that it is, I did 80 episodes of Talking Across the Game Board and Four Corners of the Board, and I got to about both of them. I got to about 60-ish and thought, okay, this isn't time to wind it down type thing. Mm-hmm. I can tell our listeners that for a Board Game Buffet, one of the best things about it, from my point of view, was always the ability that we could change up what we were doing within the episodes. So it has kept it relatively fresh. And Dean and I still have more ideas that we want to try. So we're not going anywhere anytime soon. And we haven't talked about stopping the show, which is a first for me.
I think he's just afraid. He doesn't want to see a grown man cry. I mean, listen, I'll be 100% honest. There are times where, like in anything you do in life, you're at your highs, you're at your lows, and there, whether it's your work or a different hobby you're in, or like when I coached high school sports, there were some seasons that were great, and there were other seasons that was like, I'm done. Like I don't want to do it anymore. I've lost my desire, my passion. But then, there's something that happens, maybe it's a big win, or maybe you discover this unknown talent that's only a freshman coming in. Oh my God, I've got 4 more years with this magical beast. I'm going to ride it all the way to, to glory, because this sport's all about me. It's not about the players. It's about the coach. So yeah, even within podcasting there, you have those, you have those times like, do I, can we keep doing it? But I think like anything, the more you, and not necessarily the more you do it, but when you do something and you have a good experience, it motivates you to keep going. And I would say the same things even with gaming. So it's been a while since I've gotten any face-to-face gaming in, but I was actually able to get face-to-face gaming in with my family. And that does a lot to want you to want to play more games. It's like going to a convention. Whenever I leave a convention, I'm like, man, I want to get home. I want to play this game, and I want to play this game, and I want to do this. And we talk about stuff we want to do on the podcast, and it rejuvenates you to want to immerse yourself again or farther into the hobby.
And I think also with the what Board Game Buffet is kind of morphed into is, I don't know whether people enjoy it. We obviously know some people enjoy it because we have gotten comments of how much they enjoy the banter you and I have, and kind of how it is just kind of sitting down and listening to a conversation. And I think that's why, for me, Board Game Buffet, it's I wouldn't say it's easier to do, but it feels less like work than Talking Across the Game Board and Four Corners did, because those took an awful lot of planning. It may not have sounded like it, but it was coming up with ideas, writing the questions, coming up with something for each episode is a lot different than essentially what the banter is for us, is just sitting down and just talking. I'm looking at our little note here that we share of what's the agenda for this, and it's like banter. It's like one line, that's it, but we talk for like half an hour, 40, and it just depends on where the conversation goes.
Yeah, so I think what Graham's really saying is he just waits every few days to get an updated agenda of what we're going to talk about, and he doesn't have to contribute anything else. He just shows up, puts his headphones on, and pretends that he's the diva coming out of his costume trailer.
That is true to some extent, but it also, because it's a more conversational style,
right?
It's easier. I mean, and Dean was saying this before, whenever you're doing anything, when you do the same thing over and over again, it starts to feel like work. And, people say, oh, they want to start a podcast. And I encourage anybody to try and start a podcast, but be aware that it does take work to get it done. And when I do the video reviews for the Dice Tower, you think, oh, that's great, you're getting new games all the time. It's like, yeah, but it is work. I mean, there is an awful lot of work. It's like, it is fun work. But at the end of the day, you are still thinking, I can't go back and play that old game because I have to review a new game, which means I have to get this to the table. I can't rely on other people saying that this game is great and I should play it. It's like, I have to find that out because they're new. I have to find out kind of for myself, and then do the work to write up the overview and the actual, what I actually thought of it. And if you don't like the game, you still have to play it a couple more times to make sure you didn't miss anything. But it is, I don't want to discourage anybody from doing it, but up front, you have to realize that it's not like your day job, but it's not like having the luxury of just being able to do it whenever you want, however you want. Because Dean and I, Dean's traveling. I'm going through a big thing at work right now, but we still need to do the podcast. We can't just say, well, let's leave it for a couple months and we'll come back to it at a later date whenever we feel like it. It's like, no, we do have a commitment that we need to continue to do this.
Yeah, and I would say from the video end, one of the reasons that I stopped doing video reviews was just because of there was a time commitment, but it was a return on investment of my time. And I mean, you play a lot of bad games. You play a lot of games that I would have no interest in playing. And I remember doing video reviews, and I remember getting review copies, and you feel that commitment of, oh, I got to get this played. Oh, I didn't enjoy this game. Oh, so now what am I going to do? Well, I need to play it. Let's play it again. Or let's play it, let's play it a third, fourth time, fifth time. Maybe I'm missing something. And then by the time you spend all the time playing, then you got to actually do the video. And shooting a video, I mean, it takes a while to edit a podcast. And I've said this before, if you're watching the video version of this podcast, you're getting the unedited version. I mean, I generally trim out probably 15 to 20 minutes on the audio side of it, just to try to keep it down to some would say an unmanageable amount of time, but I like to keep it under the 2-hour mark. Our goal was always an hour and a half, no more. But listen, my goal weight was, is 180 pounds, and that ain't happening either. So, but from the video side, it is a labor. It is, and for most people, it's a labor of passion. I mean, they wouldn't do it otherwise because they're not making, a ton of money off of it, if anything, for most of them. But I just, for me, it was just like, I'm wasting my time playing so many games I don't want to play when there's so many others I do want to play. And for what? for, and you don't even, you don't even get review copies unless Vasa would send you something. So why waste my time? I am playing around with some stuff now on the video side for war games, but not really reviews per se. I don't really want to get into that again, but it is some content that I'm playing around with for YouTube. We'll see. I started a few weeks ago and I just haven't been able to get back to it because of work, but I don't want to. I already have enough of a commitment with the podcast. I don't want the added pressure of committing to the video side too. I just kind of want to be able to do them when I'm able to do them.
Yep.
I'm not worried about building a fan base or a following or so, if something like that happens, that's great. But I'm not quitting my day job anytime soon, at least not for another 9 years.
It's always interesting. You find the new people kind of come and, again, doing the video side. I've been doing videos for the Dice Tower for, I think it's coming up to 3 years now, or 2 years, something like that, 2.5 years. And in that time, I've seen an awful lot of people start to do video reviews then stop. If you kind of look back at let's say the last 3 years at Dice Tower. So you've got the main core, and you've got kind of two of us that have been there for a couple of years and are constantly producing videos. But the amount of people that kind of come in, I'm saying 25 to 30 seems to be about the limit for people. And you see the same thing with podcasts too. If you look up board game podcasts, how many only have 20 to 30 podcasts? Because it's once the shine is off from, oh yeah, I'm going to do videos, I'm going to do podcasts, whatever else. Once that shine comes off, then do you have the commitment to keep on going?
Yeah. But again, if you want to do it, do it. Try it. The worst is going to happen is you decide it's not for you, or, whatever. And there's some podcasts that have left and they've come back in a different iteration. But anyways, enough about them. This is all about us. This is episode number 99. So I do have to ask you, did you read about it? Did you see it on social media? Did you see any tweets or anything? I've heard there's quite a buzz on the street that my geek gamer cred has gone through the roof in the last week and a half.
Well, you've told me about your geek gamer cred shooting through the roof. I haven't seen anyone else mentioning
really
that.
I had to rustle some people up. They told me they were going to get out there and tweet about it. I paid good money to get that publicity. So yeah, I'm pretty excited. I finally was able to immerse myself in the hobby and figure out what I've been missing with getting in a play of not only Qwirkle, a classic mainstream hobby game, but also a play of Catan. Is it Catan or Catan, or does it matter?
I don't think I've always pronounced it Catan.
Yeah.
Or Catan, depending on who I'm talking to. So
okay. Tomato, whatever. Yeah. So Catan and Qwirkle in the same weekend. I got them played. I can take those two off of my bucket list, and I can finally hold my head up high when people say, I cut my teeth on Catan, and I'd always say, I've never played it. I don't know what you're talking about.
So I have a question for you then before we kind of get into our first bites. And it's one that I actually had on our agenda, I think for the last episode, the episode before. That is about games feeling old.
Mm-hmm.
So you hadn't played Catan before, right?
Nope.
Okay. And there's a couple of games I'd been playing the last little while that I'd never played before, which are older games. I'm wondering, before we go into too deep into your Catan, did Catan feel like an old game to you? Do you feel like the hobby has moved on from that game?
I don't know if it felt, did it feel old? I'm not sure that it felt old. I guess it felt a little old to me because it felt like, even though it's not a roll and move game, it felt very much like a roll and move game to me because of every turn someone's rolling the dice, and okay, yes, you're not moving pawns around the board, but essentially you're moving pawns around the board because it's going to trigger the resources that are going to be collected. in those areas, which is the equivalent of moving your pawn to that area and getting something for it. So it felt old from that standpoint, but it didn't feel old from like, oh, I've seen this design 100 different times.
Right.
Because I don't necessarily think that I could say that, but I will leave the rest of it for for the first bite. I get what you're saying. I mean, because I know you have this really big thing about you don't want to go backwards, you only want to go forwards.
Well,
which I don't necessarily think we agree on. And I know we talked about it offline at one point in time, and that Ian, one of our listeners, had said something to you about it. And the more I thought about it, I think maybe that would be a good, maybe do it as a coffee talk. Because I think that would be like 4 banters combined if we really go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, and the only reason why I asked that, because I know when we're talking about that, I talked about a game called Battle Merchants with Dean, one of Gil Hova's early designs. And when Lel and I both finished that game, we both said it felt old. And that's not a bad thing, because quite often these games are considered classics. I'm not going to say Battle Merchants is considered a classic, but things like Catan are. But for a person who playing it now for the first time, I just played Battle Merchants for the first time, 2 weeks ago. Dean just played Catan for the first time, a week ago. If you had played it when it was new, it's bright and fresh and whatever, and so there seems to be an awful lot of love of Catan for when it did come over, because it did start the new, Euro mechanisms. And Dean and I were talking whether that really is or not. But again, Battle Merchants was early of its type as well. It's fairly highly thought of as well. But we're looking at going, okay, but it feels old. If someone was new to the hobby, I'm not going to say you should go back and start with Catan and then go up to whatever else. I'm going to say, why don't you play some other welcoming games that are new this year? But again, that's opening up a whole can of worms. But it's just that whole idea of there are some classics that still feel like they could be published today. Like I still think Dominion could probably be published today as a new game, and you wouldn't think, oh, this game feels old and tired. Things like El Grande, it's one of the first. I think it is one of the first, or consider one of the first area control games that could probably still be published today, and people wouldn't be going, oh, this feels old. But when I look at Catan, I haven't played it in many years, but I think it feels old. I think Battle Merchants feels old, and I wouldn't say there's no benefit from playing them, but I think that many games have taken those ideas and made something more enjoyable now. Or if you are getting to the hobby, I would say start with welcoming games that are being published the last couple of years, then going back 20 years to pick up the welcoming games from back then. But again,
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, that might be another coffee talk. Dean and I definitely disagree.
I think we disagree to a certain point. So I think we should table that for a nice little, a chat on the veranda with our coffee and see where that goes, because I do think we slightly differ on that. So, anyways, anything else before we jump into first bites?
I don't think so. I had something from our last podcast. I did want to remind people that we are going to be recording the 100th episode in, I think, 2 weeks from now,
something like that.
Basically a week from when you are listening to this. If you listen to on the day it releases, we do have a few people with either notes or audio clips for the 100th episode. So I would encourage, if anybody has anything, it doesn't even have to be recorded. If you just want to send us a message on Board Game Geek or an email or tweet, just saying something you like about the show. If you want to do a little more, you can go into maybe top game that you've heard Dean and I talk about that you actually tried, that you either loved or you hated, or even I know one of our listeners, Ian, sent us a top 5 games that the show introduced him to. Yeah,
that could be bad.
Well, it's kind of split. He did kind of good and bad. So all the bad ones are yours, all the good ones are mine.
Yeah, I figured
he did all good, so they're all mine.
Okay.
Okay. But yeah, if you've anything like that, we would love to have listeners kind of contribute to that 100th episode. Like I said, it can just be a little tweet saying, you know, I listen to you guys all the time, and, you know, keep it up. Anything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and if anyone wants to submit their top 5 investigators from Arkham Horror, the living card game,
you are not allowed to talk about that anymore.
It's not a top 5 list. I can talk about it whenever I want, just not a top 5 list.
And so, I will say we have at least, I think we have 2 people that are interested in coming on and doing a top 5, like not for the top 100, but top 5s down the road. So if there are other people that are interested in coming on and doing just the top 5 with us, you know, we'd be more than happy to have you on. Just, you know, drop us a line.
Yeah.
However, you know, after 100 episodes you guys have listened to, hopefully you'll be willing to share some of your ideas with us.
Yeah, and I think even for like future top 5s, if they don't want to, because I know not everybody wants to be on video or wants to record or whatever. If they're interested, we could always give them the topic ahead of time, and they could just submit their list, and we could read their list, talk about their games, critique it while they're not there to defend themselves, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, very good. Well, I think that's going to take us into our first bite segment, and like always, I'm carrying the load. 2 games this time. Do you have 2 games?
Did you not see? The thing is, you do the agenda, but you never pull up the agenda to see what I've added.
No.
Exactly.
I just create it, send it to you, and I don't want to pull it up. What's see, he wants me to pull it up because he always writes some smart ass comment on it after he makes his choices. So what little pithy comment did you have on there this time?
No pithy comment, just that I also have 2 games.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, they are not classics like mine. I'm sure there's something, some $5 game that you picked up because you didn't want to get anything else, and then probably some crap game that Vassal sent you.
No, actually, these are 2 old, not nearly as old as yours, but 2 games that are a couple of years old. That one I was surprised at, and one that I was actually, both of them I was surprised at. Put it that way. Okay. So we'll talk about them.
All right. Well, I'll start out. So my first game that I played was a game called Qwirkle. Qwirkle, I assume you would call that like a mass-produced hobby game. I think you can find it at Walmarts and Targets and wherever you get your big box stores if you're, you know, elsewhere outside of the U.S. And it's a very simple, I guess, tile laying, pattern matching, color matching style of game. I picked it up in the aftermarket. Matter of fact, I picked it up in a flea market somewhere, maybe a Dice Tower con. And when I opened it up, there weren't even any rules in it. I didn't look at it when I bought it. There was just the bag of tiles. All the tiles were there, but there were no rules. So I got online and was looking at the rules. So this is a very simple game. You're alternating turns. You're laying tiles, and these tiles, there are, I don't know, 100 and some odd tiles, and they are 6 different shapes. The tiles are all the same shape, but there's 6 different symbols on the tiles with 6 different colors. So if it's a purple circle, there are 3 purple circle tiles in the bag. So there's 3 of every kind. So whatever that comes out to be. And in this game, you are going to lay tiles on your turn. And the rules are you either are going to be laying all the same color, or you're going to be laying all the same shape, and they're going to be different colors. So you can never repeat the same. You can never repeat the same shape in the row if it's different, if it's the same color. Yes. So if you're playing purple, you can't have 2 purple circles. And if you're playing all the different shape, or if you're playing all the same shape, you can't repeat the same color in the row. So that's basically the rules. The scoring is when you lay the tiles, you're going to score for each of the tiles in that line that you're playing. You can get fancy and maybe you play a couple of tiles that'll score a couple of different lines. That's about as fancy as it gets. If you ever finish out a complete line or column, which would be 6 tiles, then you get what they call the Qwirkle. So you'd get the 6 points for that line. You'd get the 6 points for the Qwirkle. And then again, if you were able to kind of piggyback a couple other columns off of that, which I think the highest I ever scored was maybe 15 points on a single play. Very simple game. I picked it because I knew my wife would like it. She likes those tile laying games. She likes the puzzly aspect to it. And we played a 4-player and she kicked our butts. Um, what I did find interesting about it, so it was myself, my wife, my daughter who's 18, and then Brennan who's 19 or 20.
Come on, he's your second son.
No. So they did not enjoy that game nearly as much as my wife and I. So maybe they would say maybe it feels old. I mean, it's an old person's game. I don't know. Maybe they just don't like that style. But they definitely didn't enjoy it as much as we did. I enjoyed it. I mean, I enjoyed it because my wife enjoyed it, but I enjoyed the simplicity of it. To me, it's a game where you can sit down and, I mean, yeah, you have to think a little bit, but honestly, your choices are pretty limited. You're going to have 6 tiles in front of you and you're going to be drawing tiles out of the bag. The thing I was telling Graham about one other time was I kept looking, like there was a certain tile that I needed or that I wanted out of that bag because I could see where I could get a Qwirkle out of it, and I couldn't draw it, and no one else was playing it. I'm like, the tile has to be somewhere, and so it was at the end of the scoring or the end of the game. I was asking everyone, I'm like, well, who's got this other one? Because my daughter had it eventually and she went to play it somewhere else. And I stopped her. I'm like, no, I said, don't play it there. Play it up here because you can get a Qwirkle and, whatever. Didn't affect the outcome of the game. My wife still won handily, but had it potentially affected the outcome of the game, she probably would have been very ticked off and probably would have reprimanded me for coaching my daughter during the game. But again, it's a simple game. I throw it out there kind of like as a game like Sequence, it's a good family game. I could see taking this, for the in-laws on the holidays. They would enjoy it because they like Sequence and that style and stuff. I mean, it's not going to get a ton of play, but if my wife says, hey, let's play Qwirkle, I put that up there with kind of like a pyramid or a Pyramix style of game. It's an abstract, just a nice, easy game, a relaxing game. You could sit there with a drink, play it, and have a good time and still have a conversation and get it done. So that is my first bite, Qwirkle.
Yeah, I've owned Qwirkle for a long time, and Lala really enjoys it. I don't enjoy it as nearly as much as I used to. And I think it's because it's the length of the game. I find it a tad too long for what the game is. I like the concept of it. I like you can only play the same color, but it all has to be different symbols, or the same symbol, but it has to be different colors to get the Qwirkle. And I do find it when you have that, the double Qwirkle, you can place that one perfect piece, but because you're playing until the bag is empty, that added to the fact that every time someone plays a piece, you have to score it.
Right.
So there's got to be one person who's kind of magically, it's not a big deal, but you're having to write down the scores every time someone plays a piece. And if you're the scorekeeper and it's a 4-player game, you're constantly going, okay, Dean got 3 points, Amy got 2 points, Reagan got 3 points, and I, okay, now what's my piece?
Yeah.
So, but it's a really good, solid family game. I will never turn down a play of Qwirkle. It's just not the first one I'm going to think of as a family weight, or even I guess it'd be called a filler because it is light enough. Yeah. I find it a bit too long to become a filler.
Right. I just think it's a nice little abstract.
Yeah.
Yeah. Literally, it's one of those games where, unless someone was maybe colorblind, you could introduce that game to, people of any age. I don't know what it says on the box, but I can imagine you could play that, with a 8-year-old.
Yeah, it really is just a matter of matching colors. Yeah, colors and symbols.
Yeah,
it is a really good, welcoming, and the pieces are nice and big and chunky, so it's like a good quality game as well. So yeah, it's a good pick. It's just one that's, like I said, I don't dislike the game, but I don't like it nearly as much as I used to like it.
Yeah, listen, I'm not saying like, if there was a numeric value to a geek, geek cred. And I'm not saying it added 100 points to my geek cred, but it's like 20 points maybe.
A Qwirkle's worth.
That's right. A Qwirkle's worth of points to my geek cred. That's gonna be my new nickname now. I might have one of those BGG jerseys printed up with just Qwirkle on the back.
Qwirkle kid.
There you go. All right. So what's your first spate?
My one is a game that came out in 2017. It was published here in North America by Stronghold Games, and this is one called Calimala.
Okay.
It's about the Venice cloth merchants. So it takes place in northern Italy. And this is a game that I played when I first bought it and didn't think too much about it. I just thought, okay, it's a fine game. And it kind of got pushed back on my shelf. So this is one of these games that, for me, was rated like about a 7. Should I keep this game? Should it go? If I'm never going to play it again, even if it's a decent game, it's going to go. So I said, Lala, why don't we play this? And so the game is set up with a little action area of the board. It's got 9 action spaces on it, and 9 actions on it. The action spaces are actually in between the actions. And there's a map of Italy that's got a couple, I think 7 or 8 different cities on it. And then there's a scoring area and there's some churches. The main idea of this game, everybody has action discs of your color, and you're going to place them on the action board on one of the action spaces. That again is going to be in between the 2 actions on either side. And you work your way down these stacks. So if I go first, I get to do the action once. If Dean goes on top of me, so he puts his disc on top of me, he gets to do the action, then I get to do the action again. If I put the 3rd disc on, then I get to do the action, then Dean gets to do the action, then I get to do the action. So you can see how getting there early may not give you, you're doing it early, you get to do it once, but hopefully more people will go there and it's going to build up this stack of action discs and you can do it multiple times. The scoring area is set up at the beginning of the game with chits. So each game you play, it's going to be the same scoring things, but different orders. So it could be how many blocks have you delivered to Venice? How many marble have you put in this church? And how many pieces of art have you done? And these are all going to be the actions on the action board. When someone puts the 4th stack action disc on any stack on the board, you're going to go through the first 3, but the bottom one doesn't score. What happens, or it doesn't activate, what happens is you go into a scoring round. You're going to take that 4th disc and you're going to put it on the scoring track or the scoring board on the next available scoring chit. So you kind of know when it's going to score, but you don't know exactly when. So if the scoring track will say you're going to do this church first, who's ever contributed the most goods to this church, and then there's going to be stone to Venice and cloth to this other, or it should be cloth to Venice or cloth to in the other cities. You know that church one's going to go first, but until there's that 4th disc on a pile, it's not going to score. So it's like, well, I could force it to score early by running up a stack, or Dean's really far ahead. Do I spend the time to try and get more? Or do I just say, I don't think I'm going to be able to catch Dean on that, but maybe I can race ahead in some of the ones I know are coming down? Because you see all the scorings out there. You know exactly when everything's going to score, what order it's going to score in, but you don't know exactly when it's going to score because it's kicked off by that 4th disc. The game is not overly complex in terms of when you do an action, you're either going to be generating more goods, you're going to be generating more cloth, you can get more ships, you can put houses out on the different cities, and when you do that, it means you can deliver more goods to them. You're going to be getting goods to help build the churches. That's about it. But the other reason why you want to be the bottom disc when it gets scoring is because the people have majority on that scoring track. So you take the disc off again to put it on the scoring board to say when stuff each scores. That counts as majority. So let's say we go to the cloth in Venice. Dean and I are tied for how much cloth we've given to Venice. Well, then we look at the scoring board and find out who has the most discs on there. And that's what breaks the ties. So having more discs out there is beneficial for you in the long run. There's also these white discs that when you play, you can do the action twice, but when they come off the bottom, they don't go on the scoring track. It's whoever the active player is gets to put their marker on the scoring track instead. So yes, it gives you an immediate doubling, but that white disc never activates again. So even if it's in the stack, if it goes Dean, white, me, then Dean, white doesn't trigger at all for anybody, and then me gets to do the action. I really like that stacking mechanism. It's just a game that kind of came and went when it came out. And I think it's honestly has a little boring cover because it looks like medieval art. But the gameplay I find quite interesting. I'm not sure about the longevity of it because you're doing the same thing. You're doing the same thing every game. You know that you have to be producing cloth. You know you have to be getting some construction materials to build up the churches. You know you need to be producing art. You know you need to be getting marble. Where the actions are on the action board can change up from game to game. So they're basically just little chits that you shuffle up and you randomly place them on the board. It does have a suggested first game setup, but you can change it up game after that. What scores and what order is going to change, but you know everything that's going to score. Again, you just don't know what order they're going to be in. The cities and the churches never change. So again, you know what you need to be doing every game. It's just what order you're going to be doing it will change up. This is a game that surprised me because I remember thinking the first time I played it, saying, it's okay. Now this is a keeper for both Lala. We both ended up really enjoying this. We played it a couple times since I pulled it off the shelf, and each time we're like, yeah, I'm enjoying this. I can want to play it with more players because there'd be more fighting and the more tactical where you're putting your discs of, okay, do I really want to give Dean another person in the Senate, which is the scoring track? So this is one that if you haven't played it, that kind of fell under the radar. It's a really fun, kind of solid game. So this is Calimala, designed by Fabio Lopiano and put out by, at least the North American edition is by Stronghold Games.
Yeah, this is one where I think this was on my Essen list a few years ago. I'm assuming 2017. I never got a copy of it. I haven't played it. And when it came out, I heard mixed reviews about it. It's okay. It's not great. But this also came out like the same time, I think, as like maybe Newton and a few of those other games that all kind of look alike and kind of sound alike. I mean, they're all like, mid-weight Euro style games. So maybe it just kind of got mixed in with those. It's got a decent rank. I mean, it's ranked 1200 and something on BGG. Maybe the player count hurt it a little bit, but yeah, I've always wanted to play it because it sounded very interesting as far as the mechanisms. I will agree the box cover doesn't help it sell itself. Maybe it needs an expansion to add some variability or replayability to it. But yeah, I mean, I was going to ask you, because I thought this was on your potential sell list. So
yes,
I'm glad to hear that it's staying. So that way I can get it played.
Again, it was on my potential sell list, at least the second pass. And a lot of these games are what I would consider decent games. Not great, not terrible. They're decent. This one hasn't moved up to a great game for me, but it is good enough to stay in my collection. So it's kind of faint praise there.
Yeah, that's. I was trying to envision how that would work in the real world if you're doing an employee review with your subordinates, like, listen, you're not a great employee, you're good enough to stick around and I'll give you a paycheck, but don't ever make eye contact with me.
It's one of those games that I would encourage people to try. Like if you see it in a con, I'm not saying rush out and buy it, but I definitely think it's worth it at least to try because it is enjoyable. It's just, I wouldn't say, because I'm looking at the aftermarket now and it's expensive on the aftermarket for the box size. Talking 40 to 60 euros. I don't think it's worth that much, but again, if you saw it in a con, I would say, and you're looking for something to play, definitely give it a shot because it's enjoyable. I'm not sure about the longevity of it.
Right.
But for what it is, and for my collection, it's like, yeah, you know what, this is good enough, just good enough to stay. So
you've played it how many times recently? 2 times, 3 times?
3 times.
3. And you are going to keep it. But if Lalo said, hey, let's play it again today, would you want to play it again? Or is 3 like, okay, now I need a break? Like maybe I'll want to play it again in 6 months or a year.
You know what? It plays in 45 minutes to an hour for 2 players.
Okay.
If she said she wanted to play this again today, I'd be like, sure. Why not? Because it's enjoyable, and it doesn't, it's the other nice thing about it. Even it says at 4 players, it plays in 75 minutes. So you're talking of like 45 minutes to an hour and 50 minutes to play. And I think that's about accurate from my plays of it. For an hour game, sure. There's thinkiness to it. There is some, you're not doing direct player interaction, but you're definitely fighting for the positions. And, I need to get more cloth to, another in Florence, for example, because I see Dean's got a lot. So I need to get there, but that means I need another house there. So, how am I going to be doing that? And managing when stuff scores. So you want to score it when you're ready for it, but that's not always possible. And then you're having to think, okay, well, I can put all my focus on scoring the next one, but what about the one after that and the one after that and one after that? And if I'm really far behind in everything, then maybe I give up on the current one and just focus on the next ones.
So you've been playing a 2-player, but it says on BGG it's a 3 to 5 player game. Is there an alternative setup or something for 2-player? Okay.
Yeah, in the rule book, it tells you how to play with 2 players.
Okay. Well, it doesn't sound like it's a Qwirkle, but it sounds like it's okay.
We have also played with a dummy 3rd player, which is something we normally do. Right. We just happen to call our dummy 3rd player Jack for no particular reason.
So meta.
And because everything's out in the open, Lella and I will tend to team up to play the 3rd player. And that damn 3rd player has beat us.
I could see that. Yeah. I mean, Jack's a wily guy.
Yeah.
He sneaks his victories in for you. All right, so that is Calimala. I was thinking that was set in India. Where is it set?
It's in Italy.
Italy.
Northern Italy.
Huh. Just sounds Indian.
Yeah.
I don't know. Gives me that Temple of Doom vibe. Calimala. All right. So
gonna rip someone's heart out.
Yeah. Well, what are they saying there? I can't remember what they're saying in the movie when they're chanting it. So my first bite, as I alluded to earlier, my next one is Catan. So how do I want to preface this? Okay, so I know it's cool. It's it's chic now to hate on Catan. And I'm assuming those are people that are hating on Catan that maybe played it way back in the day, and now now they have the walk of shame that they have to admit that they played it or something. I don't know, whatever the case may be. I'm not approaching it from the standpoint of, hey, I just want to be cool and be negative on Catan, because I'm not sure. I'm negative on it only from a certain aspect. So if you haven't heard of Catan, I don't know what you've been doing with your life. I mean, how you could call yourself a geek or a gamer if you haven't heard of Catan or played it, but whatever. So Catan is a resource gathering, dice rolling, negotiation trading style of game. It is kind of it is one where in the game, you're going to have certain tiles out on the board that are going to have a numeric value to them that are going to be based on the combination of rolling 2 6-sided dice. So anywhere from 2 to 12 will be the numbers assigned to the tiles. On your turn, you're going to roll the 2 dice. That's going to tell you, I rolled a 5. So you're going to look at the 2 spaces that have 5s on them, and whoever has settlements or cities on those spaces, or I guess on the corners of those spaces, are going to collect the resources for them. And you're going to be collecting these resources, and then you're going to be turning them into either build roads, more settlements, upgrading your settlements to a city, or getting a development card. And the development cards are going to give you potentially victory points, or they're going to allow you to do a couple of, maybe put an extra couple roads down or a settlement down, or take resources out of the resource bank. Or they're going to give you a night card, and the night card is going to activate the robber. So the robber is kind of the sticking point I have in the game for me anyways. So again, if you haven't heard of it, so if you roll a 7 on the 2 dice, you're going to activate the robber. The robber is going to then allow you to move it to a certain tile on the board and basically kill that area until it's moved again. So no resources are going to come out of that area. The other thing the robber is going to do is it's going to trigger anyone that has 8 or more cards in their hand, resource cards in their hand, has to basically cut them down in half. So if you have 8, you got to get rid of 4. If you got 9, you got to get rid of 4 because you're rounding down. You got 10, you got to get rid of 5. And I understand why they do it, because they don't want you to hoard cards, and they want you to use your cards and not just, stockpile them. But in effect, it really is the equivalent of losing a turn or potentially 2 turns, which most people hate in games. You talk about, games. Oh, I don't like it where you can be forced to be skipped or lose your turn. And in this game, it really has that effect. At least it did when I played it. I can think of at least 2 different times. And of course, I did it to myself because I rolled the 7. It didn't hurt any less, but it effectively set me back for a couple of turns because I lost a lot of resources when I couldn't do anything. And in this game, because it is so random and so, I would say luck dependent, random, whatever you want to call it, as to the area, as to what is rolled on the dice to give you the resources, it really can stagnate you in this game. So that's one of the problems I had with the game. Is I felt the randomness was way out of control in this game. So for a game that is looked at as the beginning of Euro gaming in North America, it's a German Euro, it's brought over. The only thing I kept thinking during this game was, this is not as Euro-y as I thought it was going to be. Matter of fact, it's got mechanisms in it that I wouldn't really equate with being a good Euro, let's just say, or a modern Euro. The tons of randomness in the game from the dice rolling was more than I anticipated. The fact that you basically can be wiped out of your cards with the robber and essentially losing turns, I thought was, I don't know, could be devastating. And to me, and I said it before, I really feel like it's the equivalent of a roll and move game. I mean, you're rolling dice every turn. Yes, you're not moving a pawn, but you are essentially it's the equivalent of moving a pawn to a location and getting that benefit of that location. You're not going in a linear fashion. You can't really see what, you can't look at it and say, oh, I need to roll a 3 because I need to move this space. But there are many times where I was looking at the board, like, please, someone just roll a freaking 5 because I need to get wheat, or I need to, whatever. So I guess I had set myself up for the expectation of, I'm going to be sitting down, I'm going to be playing this classic Euro game that is sold, I don't know, 25 million copies probably. I mean, I'm sure it's sold a ton and is looked at as the I don't know, the womb of Euro gaming, whether it's here in North America or whether it's in Europe. And as we kept playing and playing and playing, I just was like, it was a letdown. I'm not saying it was I couldn't say I don't know. Is it a bad design? I can't say it's a bad design because, I mean, it's just, I'm not sure the words that I'm looking for on this, because obviously it's well loved and it still sells and it's very popular and it's got expansions and expansions. And I just kept sitting there thinking, dear God, this game won't end. And there was nothing I could do other than just not doing anything to expedite the end of the game. And it left me puzzled. It left me kind of confused as to how it became so popular. And I can only guess that maybe because it was it had dice and it has that kind of roll and move vibe to it, that maybe that made it very easy to transition to American gamers, to US gamers or North American or gamers who anywhere in the world who are just used to that roll and move style. It's I can see where that was a very easy transfer of understanding. And I can see where, yes, it was also something new of, oh my God, we're gathering these resources, we're trading these resources in, and we're building stuff. Because I mean that had to be something new that the Monopoly players or Scrabble players or whatever game it is that you played as kids, or that you weren't doing that. So I can see that, and maybe the robber was just in there. I'm not sure what the reason was behind the robber. I mean, game wise, unless maybe the game went too fast without it, it ended too soon. I mean, I'm sure there's a balancing reason in there, and I'm not a designer, and I'm not sure what the math reasoning is behind it. But again, you talk about games that overstay their welcome. This was a game that overstayed its welcome for me. And in my mind, I'm thinking, why? I mean, I know there's an expansion for 5 to 6 players. Why in God's name would you ever want to do that? And they have expansions for it. And unless the expansions are doing something super cool and don't add any time to the game, why would you want to do that? And I was telling Graham, I back in the spring, I was working with a coworker, and he's out of college, but he's probably not 30 yet. And we were just talking about games, and he's like, oh yeah, he's like my family, we all get together and we play like Catan. We'll have like all day sessions or whatever. I have every expansion, and in my mind I'm like, oh, that sounds really cool. Maybe and I don't even know if Amy had talked about playing it at that point in time, but in my mind I'm like, oh, okay, well, he's really into it. Maybe I should introduce him to some other stuff. But after now having played it, in my mind I'm like, oh my God, that poor bastard. He has to play this all day long, and his family. I mean, I guess they enjoy it. I think he enjoys it way more than his family does from the way he was talking about it. I don't know. I didn't want to be negative about it while I was playing it, because Amy really wanted to play it. That's the whole reason I got a copy of it. Was she's one of her influencer families that she listens to or follows or whatever had said how much fun they have playing it. So I wanted to enjoy it from that standpoint. I didn't want to, rain on her parade. But I sensed her frustration with it as well, because since it's a game of trading, we played a 4-player, and we played it with my daughter, who wasn't going to trade with mom at all. I mean, that just wasn't going to happen. They're like oil and water. So they weren't going to trade with each other, or at least my daughter wasn't going to. And so you had that aspect of it. You had the robber aspect where, if Reagan or Brennan had a chance to, screw over one of us, that, they were going to do that regardless of who was kind of like winning at the time. And so I could sense her frustration with it from that standpoint of, like, anytime you play a trading game or whatever, if someone gets locked out or, no one's going to participate with them, that can't be that much fun. So I felt bad from that standpoint. Again, I didn't want to rain on her parade, but when it was all said and done, I kind of asked him, like, so I'm like, what'd you think? She's like, yeah, it was fine. And, I mean, I think she would probably want to play it again, unfortunately. And I would play it again with her if she wanted to. But so I mentioned a couple episodes ago where she had mentioned, again, one of her influence families had talked about Wingspan. And just to prevent me from having to play Catan again, I ordered a copy of Wingspan. So that, listen, if I got to play one or the other, I'm going to put Wingspan on the table, because at least it's not a roll and move, style of game. And, someone's not going to come in and wipe out all my cards or whatever. But I don't know. Again, I'm not saying it from the standpoint of, hey, it's cool to make fun of Catan. I was just really disappointed. I think I had set myself up for, this is a classic. Now I know not every classic stands up to the test of time. And when you ask me, does it feel old? I'm not sure that I could say it felt old, other than, the dice rolling was so heavy in it and the randomness. I guess I was just it didn't feel as Euro-y as I thought it was going to feel. Like, other than the resource gathering, that was the only Euro feel I had to the game. The rest of it felt very, I'm going to say American is right. It felt very mass market, Hasbro-y, versus a Euro feel. And so I'm interested in how we went from, this is the game that introduced us to German Euros and has bloomed into this hobby. How did that actually happen from that game? Like, what was the next game, I guess, that was the step up from it, and how, and maybe there's tons of people that still play Catan, and it's still being introduced to people as that, but I would never introduce that game to someone who I thought was going to want to really play a good Euro game, or a strategy style game. Because I don't think there's other than, do I want to go for night cards or for the longest road and upgrading the cities? Wasn't a whole lot of strategy in that game. It's like, okay, well, yeah, I didn't get anything that turn. Nope, didn't get anything that turn. Oh crap, I just lost half my cards. So
yeah, it's funny that we still use this as, still thought of as like an introductory game, like to bring people into the hobby. I told this when Dean was first telling me that he played Catan with Amy and the family. I played Catan for the first time probably about 9 years ago, maybe 9-10 years ago, like very, very early in my board gaming life. I did not grow up playing board games with my family. So I was pretty new to board gaming when I got into it. Like, I knew about the traditional like Monopoly and Sorry and stuff like that. But again, we didn't play that as a family. Like, I'm sure I played them as a kid, but then we didn't do that. We tended to play card games. So when I first got into the hobby, I got into some abstract strategy games, and then Pandemic and stuff like that. So those are my first games into the hobby. But very soon after that, I played Catan. I didn't like it from my very, very first play. I didn't like the randomness. I didn't like that you could do that. Some rounds you just did nothing. I didn't like that if people wouldn't trade with you, there's nothing you could do. I couldn't trade with. Again, it's been about 10 years since I played it. You couldn't trade like with the bank. You couldn't.
Well, you can trade with the
but
bank.
It's really poor.
It starts out at a 4-to-1 ratio.
Yeah. And I've never liked it. And I've always said, if that was my very, very first game that I ever played in board gaming, because again, I played Pandemic before this and I had a good experience with that. But if this was the very first one, I don't know whether I would have continued or not. Because if someone came to said, this is the foundation of all the Euro games, the entire realm of board gaming we have now, and I played that, it's like I disliked it so much in my first play that I'm like, I don't think I would have said, if this is what you're showing me as the pinnacle or the grandfather of all these games, it's like I don't want to see the rest of them. I did not like it.
Yeah, and then I talked about the strategy in it. I even tried there were a couple of tiles that I had roads and settlements on that were close to a couple of the harbors or ports or whatever they call them, on the outskirts. And I thought, this is going to be great, because this one, if I get a settlement here, it gives me a trading of a 2-to-1 ratio for sheep. And this one gives me a 2-to-1 ratio for iron ore or whatever it is. And I had, they were close enough to those areas where it made sense to build the roads, build the settlements, upgrade into the cities. I'm like, it's going to be great. I'm going to get, like, every time these numbers are rolled, I'm going to be getting double the amounts, or, I have a city and a settlement. I'm going to get, 3 on this one and 3 on this one. It's going to be awesome. Then I'm going to be able to trade in 2-to-1 ratios and be able to get the stuff that I don't need. And yes, in theory, I think I got to do that maybe twice, because by the time I'd get the cards enough in my hand to then trade, the freaking robber would come along and wipe out my hands, and so I'd lose the stuff and not be able to trade it anyway. So I think I ended up, so you play this game to 10 points. Brennan got to 10 points. I think I had 7, and I think Amy and Reagan were probably in the 5 or 6 range. And I could have, I had a point card in my hand, and I could have placed another road, I think. Was another road to steal the longest road back from Amy, because she had stolen from me. And I guess maybe that would have that could have gotten me to 10 points, but I didn't want to, I didn't want to be a jerk about it and, whatever. Because when I first took it, I think I took it when I had 6 roads. And she's like, oh, wait, she's like, couldn't I have gotten that? She's like, I had 5 roads. I'm like, well, you could have. I said, I wasn't paying attention to the number of roads you have. I said, you kind of got to do that on your own. I said, but I just laid 6. So I'm like, I would have stolen it from you anyways. I'm like, here. So do you want it? Okay, now give it back. But I don't know. I think at some point in time, I just kind of like had zoned out, didn't care anymore of whether I won or not. I just wanted it to end. But yeah, like I said, I'm not against it because I think it's, I keep saying I don't want to say it's a bad game. It's not a game for me.
Yeah.
And I just, like, my big thing is I was just disappointed. Like I said, it was this game that
you don't hate the game. You're just disappointed in the game.
That's right. Listen,
I'm not mad at the game.
You.
Yeah.
I still love you. I'm just disappointed in you. Yeah. I don't know. It was a big letdown. And maybe I set myself up for expecting too much. I mean, I wasn't expecting it to be make it into my top 100 by any means, but I thought there would be more to it than what there was, and more of a Euro-y feel to it than what there was. I just wasn't getting this big Euro, like, listen, here's granddad who, the patriarch of the Euro family.
Yeah.
And it turns out it's just a shriveled up husk of a person sitting in a chair. No.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you've said. And my opinion of Catan has never changed in the 10 years since I've played it. But I think it's also, when you listen to the games I like and dislike, most games that I talk about that have high levels of randomness, I dislike. Any games that has trading, I dislike. So it's not just I dislike it in Catan. I dislike it in almost every game that has it.
Right.
So this is Catan for me isn't an outlier. It's just kind of everything I learned I don't like. That's what Catan has.
And I will say that the thing I did enjoy about Catan was I enjoyed the.
You enjoyed packing it back up to the box.
No, I enjoyed the planning aspect of cutting someone off so they couldn't expand their roads. and actually I enjoyed it. And Reagan did it to Amy quite effectively. Like, Amy was trying to get her roads down to put a settlement at one of the ports. And Reagan went down there and boop, cut her off, put a settlement in there. Oh, and the look on her face was, I almost had a little tear that rolled down my cheek. I'm like, that's my girl. But then I felt bad because Amy was already getting hammered pretty good in the game. But yeah, if she wants to play it again, I'll play it. But
yeah, I would have a really hard time if anybody asked me to play Catan. I just really dislike it. Yeah.
I did tell her when we were done, basically as a way of maybe getting her to not want to play it again, as I said, listen, I said, we've been playing a lot of games over the last, year or so, and I've evaluated your skill set, and I really think you're ready to step up your game to some heavier games or a little more strategic games, because she really is a good gamer. I mean, she understands. I was telling you, she understands the rules and she understands what you can and cannot do. And when she thought that Brennan made an illegal move in one of the games, man, she was on it. And she was like, no, you can't do that. Don't you have to do this or whatever? And she is competitive. Maybe not necessarily an endearing quality, but she is competitive about it. But she does have some AP issues. So, but yeah, I'm trying to massage her into, maybe like a Lorenzo El Magnifico, the best.
You want to have her never play a game with you again, and introduce her to
No, I had her play Lorenzo El Magnifico, the card game where you got the marbles and stuff. She was doing actually quite well in that. Matter of fact, I had to sneak in at the end and stop her. Otherwise, I would have lost the game, which didn't make her happy. But
no, that when in that situation, after the game ends, you then pick up the rule book and go, oh wait, this scores extra as well. And I guess I get the win.
No, listen, I can't sleep with my eyes open. So, all right. So that was my first bite, Catan. So what's your last bite?
My last one,
first bite.
is a game called New Haven.
Hmm.
This is by Brian Leet and Kevin Warden, put up by R&R Games. You think of R&R Games, so it's a party game. Well, R&R Games every year does one Euro-y style game. So this was from 2013. This was their Euro game from 2013. And actually, before I go into this, Calimala is 3 only, but the designer has, I found it on Board Game Geek and printed out, which is why it's in my box. There's an official 2-player variant that the designer did as well. So it's not in the rule book. You have to go to Board Game Geek. Anyway, New Haven. Everybody has their own little player board, and on their player board are numbers 1 through 6 in the rows and 1 through 6 in columns. So you have a 36 square board that is all numbered. And you have a little player screen, and behind your player screen, you're going to get 6, I think they're called towns. And each town will be a color. So red, yellow, green, and gray are your color. They represent the different goods that you can get during the game. And each one of them is going to be a number between 1 and 6, just like your player board. On your turn, you have these larger square tiles. And on the player board, you're going to be placing them on the square tiles on the player board. And of course, you want to try and make connections. Each one of these square boards is usually going to have between 2 and 3 of the different resources on. There's only 4 resources in the game. There's wheat, there's sheep, there's stone, and there's wood. So you're going to put it on the board, and you're going to look for whatever is on the tile that you placed. You're going to get that many resources. And then whatever they're connected to. So if you can string like a long string of wood between a bunch of different tiles, as long as they're all connected back to the tile that you placed orthogonally, then you can get that many wood. So your tile may only have 1 wood on it, but if it's connected to 10 other woods, you get 11 wood. So you're going to move all the markers up on the main player board to say, okay, I got 10 wood, I got 3 stone, and I got 2 sheep. That allows you to build as many of those building tiles you have behind your screens as you want. As soon as you place, so you have to pay the cost based on where you play it. So let's say I spend 5 wood, then I can place it on the 5 row somewhere. And I have to have a red building behind me, which is the wood building. And I can place it anywhere on that 5 row. Now, if I already have a wood building out there, then the next wood building I place out there has to be connected to, they have to be one large group of red buildings. So I can't put a red building on the left side of the board and start another one on the right side of the board. They have to be connected somehow. So the cost you pay is based on the player board, but if the cost you pay also matches the cost on the building, you get to place it face up. So if I have a 5 red building on behind my player screen and I spend 5 red resources, which is the wood, I can place that 5 red building on the 5 circle face up. If it was, let's say, a 6, or let's say it was a 1 that I had behind my screen, I had a 1 red building. I can still place it in the 5 row. I still pay 5 wood, but I place it face down. So on your board, you're going to have a mix of face up and face down buildings. Of course, the goal of the game is to get complete rows or complete columns. If you can do that, you score, depending which row or column it is, you're going to score between, I think it's 1 and 5 points. If your row and column is made up of all face up buildings, then you get double the points. So when you finish your turn, so when I'm finished spending all of the resources, then goes to the next person in order, they get to build 1 building with whatever resources are left on the board. So yes, when I place that big square tile, I'm moving all the sliders up to say, okay, this is how many resources available. If I can spend all of them, no one else gets to build. But if I've left some, then Dean can say, well, I'm going to use 1 of your sheep, and I'm going to build a 1 green building and place it on his board. You can only build 1 building with what's ever left. It goes around the table. Everybody gets to do that. And then as the active player, I look at how many of the resources are at the 0 level, and I get to take that many new buildings. There's 5 buildings put face up on the side of the board. The rest are in the bag. You have to take one of the face up ones, and you can take the rest out of the bag or face up ones. So ideally, you want to get all the resources you can to spend all the resources to build as many buildings as you can, leave no resources for anyone else, and have all the resources back down to zero so you can get more buildings to build up. Once you've done that, you're going to take another one of the square tiles and put it behind your player board. You're going to do this until there's only one space left on the main player board. And then you're going to count up how many rows and columns you've completed. And again, depending on which one, I think it's like the middle column, for example, is worth 1 point, but the side columns are worth 5 points. So of course, building on the side is more difficult because you can only kind of go 2 ways or 3 ways. Building in the middle is easier because you have a lot more freedom of where to place the other tiles, but doesn't get you as many points. End of game, just count up how many rows and columns, multiply it, double it if you've got all the face-up ones. Any incomplete row or column scores you nothing, and that's it. This game, again, I played this when it first came out, 2013, 2014 timeframe, and I remember enjoying it. I remember playing it a couple times. Now that when I play it, remember how I was saying I disliked randomness in Catan? Well, this one has almost as much randomness to that, because you could be stuck with the 2 square tiles that generate you resources behind your screen that say this one produces sheep and stone and this one does sheep and wheat, and you have wood buildings. It's the only buildings you have left are wood. So I'm going to put this resource down. I'm going to collect all these resources, remove the sliders. I can't build anything. Oh, look, Dean, I just gave you 9 sheep to build with. Would you like to build your 6th one, which is difficult to build? Go ahead. I've just given you all the resources. I got to build nothing. Oh, you can't build anything? Only 1 slider's down at the 0 range, which means I get to pull 1 building. Wow, that's fun. So I got to build nothing, and I only get to add 1 to my thing. And look, there are 4 wheat out there. Okay, I guess I take a wheat because I have to take 1 from the face-up ones. It got to the point when sometimes you would take 1 or 2 turns in a row and just not be able to do anything. And it was frustrating. Yes, you can always spend resources to place on your board. It doesn't have to match the building, but the color you spend has to match the building. So if I don't have, or I can only produce, let's say 1 red, and the first red I placed is on the 6th level, I have to spend 5 or 6 to place my next red one, because it has to go connected to the one I've already placed on the board. Again, that would be your own fault for doing that, but it is possible, especially because you want to try and make the rows and columns all face up. So if I have 6 red and I have a 6 red building, well, I guess I'm going to start on the 6th row for my red buildings, but I've kind of painted myself into a picture that unless you're getting that, and what we found as well is you tended to get 1 or 2 resources that would really, really grow. Like, okay, I'm building wood, and then Dean's going to do off mine and produce more wood, and he's left it open so I can place another wood one. So I'm now getting 12, and then all of a sudden it gets cut off, and you really can't do wood anymore. Well, I needed to build the 5 and 6 one, and there's no way I'm going to be able to do it now, because all the woods that are going to be left now is you're going to be able to get 2 woods because you've locked off that big string of wood that you really needed to build it off. So we just found it was just too random. There is some planning to the game. Like I said, you probably don't want to start all your colors off on the 6th row because it's going to be very difficult to build off of that. But sometimes you just had rounds when you did nothing, and any game that has rounds you just can't do anything is not fun. And not only can you not do anything, you're actually giving the opportunity to your opponents to be able to do something on your own turn. Because if you can't use any of the resources, and every other person gets one chance to use those resources as well. So this one, like I said, this one I thought I used to like. Now this is definitely on my sale pile. So that is New Haven from R&R Games from 2013.
Yeah, I never realized this was an R&R Games production. Honestly, I didn't even realize it was that old of a game. Yeah. I've never played it. I think I vaguely have looked at it only because I like the box art. I really think it's a pretty cover. But but I didn't realize that it was that old. I didn't realize it was that light either. Yeah. I thought it was more of a actual Euro, like a, game board, like, put tiles out, gather some resources, that sort of game. So that's kind of disappointing.
It is, because a lot of their newer Euro games have been much more Euro-y. Mm-hmm. Like you look at something like Ulm, or I forget what their last one was, but they've tended to try to do definitely heavier Euro games. This one feels like it's definitely it's heavier than a party game, but it's really not as heavy as some of their later Euro games that they've done. And I felt this one kind of, I don't know, it's just too random for me. You don't get the real opportunity to strategize. It's not like, oh, I'm doing an excellent move by putting my 4 green here. It's like, no, it's because that's what you have.
Yeah, I see the same 2 designers have a game coming out in 2021 by R&R Games called Mystic Paths.
Again,
Mystic 2 to Paths, 6 players.
And that's a party game.
Yeah, Mystic it says Paths. 2 to 6 players, says give clues to your teammates, complete your journey through it, through the Eternal Forest. So, they've had a big gap from 2013 to 2021. They haven't had anything in between, other than I think they had an expansion for New Haven. So that one's on your sale pile, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah. And again, I'm sure this is going to appeal to players, because for me, it's too light and too random. Mm-hmm. But some people, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for a nice game that you're not going to burn your brain over this. You're going to be placing a tile and then just figuring out whatever resources, what can you do? That's it.
Right.
So,
right.
And so if you would like to buy the game, contact.
And I think one thing to keep in mind is that we talk about the randomness, or whatever. I mean, I don't mind games where there's some randomness, and I don't mind games where not every turn is like this bountiful sort of, oh, look, I get this, and this, and I'm able to do this and this. I get that there are going to be some turns in games where I can't do as much as I want to, but I have more of a problem where I can't do anything at all.
Yeah. And that is my big thing too. Like, as much as I dislike randomness, I find games that have 0 randomness in them enjoyable up to a point, but I recognize that I do like some randomness in games, but the randomness I appreciate more in games are, I think, what you're just alluding to. It's like, well, if I got the perfect card, I can do this fantastic turn. But even if I don't get it, I'm going to be able to do a lesser turn, but it's, I can still do something. I can still do something useful. Catan and New Haven both have the same chance of being able to go, I can't do anything. This turn is a complete waste to me. So, and New Haven is even more of a kind of little knife in the back, because I can't do anything. But Dean goes, teehee, I can use up all your sheep and place this perfect one that I've been waiting to place. It's like, okay, so it's not only did I fall down, someone just kicked me in the teeth.
Yeah. Your impression of me is uncanny, because that's exactly what I do.
I have played enough games with you, sir, to know that that's how you act.
Yeah, and not to belabor the point, but like with Catan, it's if someone else is rolling the dice, okay, it's not on a tile that I can use. All right, next person. Oh, it's not a tile I can use. Next person. Oh, look, I get one, I finally get one piece of wheat. And then on your own turn, it's like, okay, I roll the dice. Oh, it's not my territories. No one wants to trade with me. Okay, well, I'm done. I can't build anything, or whatever. So live and learn. I listen, I can take it off of my bucket list. I can now go to the grave knowing that I've played it. Now I just need to play Dominion, and I don't know. I guess when I think of the big 3, I think of Dominion, Carcassonne, and Catan. And maybe there's others out there, but I've got 2 out of the 3 done. All right, so that's going to wrap up our first bites and bring us to our top 5. And I thought for this one, since we talked about Catan, even though Catan's not a top 100 game, it is considered a classic. And I thought, let's look at the BGG top 100. But instead of saying, it's our favorite games from the top 500 or top 100, we've all played games that are highly ranked and they just aren't for us. Maybe we think they're horrible design. Maybe they just don't resonate with us. We just didn't enjoy it. So I told Graham, let's look at the top 100 or the top 150 or whatever it is, and come up with 5 games that obviously are immensely popular. They're ranked high, but we just don't enjoy playing them. And you got all yours within the top 100, yes. Right? So I had one that was outside of the top 100. Not that I love everything in the top 100, but I just haven't played, all the games within the top 100. So, so if you want to start first.
Yeah. And I do want to say that any game that I have not played won't be on this list.
Right.
Dean had, when we were talking about this list, he jokingly said, "Oh yeah, but the Star Wars games." It's like, well, if I haven't played them, they're not going to be on my list.
Right.
And I'm going to say that most of the games on my list, except for one, I've only played 1 or 2 times. So they've just left a bad impression. I may come to like them. Terra Mystica is a perfect example, which I didn't like the first time or 2 I played, but I've now come to really enjoy the game. So again, these games are essentially first bites, which I didn't like.
Okay.
So yeah, I can start first.
Yeah, go ahead.
My number 5, let's see if Dean can guess this. My number 5 is a game that you ranked extremely highly, and Eric also did extremely high. And I don't believe you own a copy of it because you're waiting to buy my copy from me if I ever decide to sell it.
Well, I was going to say Eldritch Horror, but if I don't own a copy.
You own, I think you own the first edition.
I'm going to say PAX Premier.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is my number 5. Again, I've only played this game once.
Yes.
And I think it's because I didn't know what to expect from a PAX game. And I don't know whether this is similar to other PAX games. But the production is beautiful in this game. This takes place in Afghan during, I forget which, basically during the collapse of one empire. And you have a bunch of the different other political groups trying to get it. Like you have England, I forget who the other ones are.
Russia.
They're all kind of vying for control of this. So you're trying to make alliances with the locals to kind of strengthen. You're giving gifts and you're kind of aligning yourself to the different factions. You can break those alliances. This has some things that we talked about in Catan that I don't like, in which was it the assassin? There's a character that you can put on someone else's characters. They can't use them anymore.
Spies, I think.
Is it the spies? Again, you're going to be looking, going, "Oh, I'm going to use this person." Someone puts a spy on it. You can't use that person until the spy's gone. It has a bit of the area majority, and if someone has the majority of certain areas, you can't do stuff unless you get their agreement to do it. And I found at one point I was down to like one territory, and there's kind of nothing I can do. Again, that was my own fault, and I think that was my own fault for not realizing how the game flow works. So again, this is my number 5 because I left a bad taste in my mouth, but I think it's because I was learning the game and teaching the game at the same time. So everybody was new to this game. And I think this game would probably benefit from repeated plays or playing with someone who knows how the game works. So you can say, "Oh, by the way, you need to be looking out for X." Because that's what happened to me. I wasn't looking out for X, and it kind of smacked me upside the face. And I kind of went, "Oh, maybe if I'd known that, okay." And it happened to a couple other players I was playing with as well. We actually played a 4-player game. And because we didn't know what was happening or understood the impacts of what was happening, some of it kind of caught us off guard. And again, that left a bad taste in my mouth. So I didn't enjoy it. I have no real desire to go back and play it, but I probably recognize that this is the game out of my top 5 that I could probably be convinced to play it again, like with yourself, things I know you played it, or Eric. You guys both spoke very highly of it. Maybe if I played it with you guys and you could explain a little more of, "Oh, by the way, you need to be watching for this," or "This is what's going to happen when this," because the cards kind of come down, and when they fall off the board, if they get triggered or they don't trigger, I forget what that was. I think I went into it not knowing enough of what to watch for, and that's why it's left a bad taste in my mouth. But this one, again, my number 5 is PAX Premier.
Yeah, it's definitely a game that can be punishing, and it's punishing because you do it to yourself. Yeah, for sure. Sounds like you just had a really bad teacher. Who taught the rules for that game?
Horrendous. Last time I'm ever going to listen to this guy.
All right, so my number five, I'm just going based numerically from the highest ranked, lowest ranked, down towards one. All right, so my number five is actually ranked 116, just out of the top 100, and that is a game called Alchemist. Alchemist is not my cup of tea. I I would say I played it once. I participated in a game once. It's just I don't thematically. It didn't draw me in. It has the app. It's a heavy game, and you're combining the different potions or whatever together. I think I was lost kind of from the beginning. Part of it is it's not all. I mean, it's not like it's a mathy game or anything like that, but it's a combination, I think, of the deduction part of it, and then also the combining of the stuff. The people that I played with were really really into it, and and of course they had played it before, was part of it, but I didn't enjoy this game, and I to the point of I don't remember a whole lot of it. Like I said, I think I was just probably there, like as a body, like, hey, we need a fourth player, so let's have him play. Have you played this game?
I did. I've only ever played this at a con.
Yeah. Did you enjoy it?
No,
Okay.
I did not enjoy it. It didn't make my list, but I didn't enjoy it because I like deduction.
Mm-hmm.
But I like having deduction when I can actually figure out what the correct answer is. This one I felt it was 3/4 deduction, 1/4 guessing on
Right.
what the final thing was, and that just rubbed me the wrong way because I would it's sold as a a fantastic deduction game. It's like, well, deduction will take you so far, but then you kind of have to take a guess to find out what the actual thing is.
Right. Yeah. No, I would agree with that assessment.
So just for that reason, it was like I'd rather play either a full deduction game or take the Euro elements out of Alchemist and just make a regular Euro game to it when you're maybe trying to collect components and trying to instead of trying to guess what the final brew is, let me build it through more Euro mechanisms. So this one just kind of missed the mark for me.
Yeah, and for me, I think it's a 2-hour game. It's a heavy game.
Yeah,
and it was one of the first ones coming out with an app, and I think all of those things combined, maybe now, and I don't know, I'm assuming it's still supported with its app. But if I'm going to play a heavy game for 2 hours, I mean, there's so many other Euro games that I'd play over this one for sure. So, anyways, that's my number 5, Alchemist.
So my number 4 is a game that again has been sitting on my shelf for a long time, and they've actually come out with a legacy edition of it. And I was tempted by the legacy edition. I said, "Oh, maybe I should try the base game that I have." This one, it's a deck builder. So you're nodding your head. What do you think it is?
I'm assuming it's Clank.
No, actually, it's not.
Really? Okay.
No. This is Aeon's End.
Oh, okay.
Aeon's End is a deck builder. You are your mages. So it's a cooperative game that you are kind of mages battling against a big baddie. There's a couple in the base set, and you are building up your deck. You're doing damage to him, and he's going to have the big baddie every once in a while is going to do something different. Like he's going to hurt people. He's going to bring out minions or something like that. And you need to be, of course, battling the minions and trying to do attacks against the main guy. Lela and I played this 2 or 3 times, and it just didn't. And I'd actually played this before with Megan, and it just didn't click with any of us. I found the cards relatively uninteresting. The special abilities were fine. This game again was on my sell list, and I need to get it tried again. So I remember playing it when it first came out. I remember trying it, thinking this game's okay, but I'd rather play other deck builder games. And then Lel and I played it and kind of went, I really don't like this. I don't know whether I'm missing something from this game. And it's going to be interesting because a lot of the games that come up, you're thinking, what am I missing to this? So this is ranked 62 overall. It's a fairly highly rated game. It's not my highest rated game that I dislike. This one, I can't say I don't like it because This one for me is just more of a feeling. The game just didn't click for me. All the mechanisms seem solid. The idea of a cooperative deck building game is solid. Like I like there's the one in space when you're battling against the aliens.
Xenoshift.
Xenoshift, yes. I was thinking Xenomorph, but Xenoshift, I like that. I like that cooperative deck building game where you kind of playing cards with other players. This one, there is a bit of cooperation as well, that you can do things that will help the other players. You are trying to do portals on your board. So the way the game works, when you want to attack someone, you don't attack them directly. You put them kind of in a prep area, and you can have at the start of the game, you have like 2 or 3 prep areas depending on your character. And then at the beginning of your turn, you say, are any of the spells in my prep area, can they be shot off? So some of them, depending on what your prep area, if it's a completely open portal, you can save them to say, I'm going to save this spell for the right time. If they're not, they will automatically fire the next prep time. So I like that idea. I like spending some of your resources to open up more things, more portals, and they have to be kind of turned down. And you can spend a lot to open it right away, or you can spend a little to turn it down, which means it's going to be less expensive to open up right away, or you can kind of spend a little less to, turn it again. So you can kind of rotate it. The buying of the cards, you put out, I think it's 9 cards on the table, or is it 10? Maybe 10 cards you can buy. But they're like, oh, this one gives you a resource. This one gives you 2 resources. This one gives you 1 resource. And if you have more of these in your hand, you get 2 resources of it. It's like, okay. I don't know. It's just, I'm still slightly interested in the legacy aspect of this, but the base game of Aeon's End, again, I seem to be an outlier, just didn't click for me. I'd much rather play other deck builder games, which I enjoy more, but I guess I'm a minority. So that is Aeon's End, put out by the Action Phase Games and Indie Boards and Games, which are now part of, did they join with Stronghold? So I'm not sure who publishes it now, but
yeah, I don't know.
Like I said, this one just, I like a lot of deck building games. This one just missed the mark for me.
So when you say you're taking on the baddies,
yeah,
do these baddies have like badges with like rats' anuses on them?
They could.
I'm just, when you kept saying you're fighting the baddies, it reminded me of that Mitchell and Webb. Are we the baddies? Oh. And like, it's not like they have rats' anuses as their emblems or whatever.
I'm trying to think these skull and crossbones.
Exactly. Yeah, I haven't played it. It's really not even one that I've even been drawn into even looking at. I don't know why, maybe thematically or the theme or something, but yeah, I just, I don't think I've even picked up the box to even look at it before. So, all right. So my number 4 is a game that I'll be surprised if it's not on your list higher up. It's ranked number 100. I know you love the original iteration of this game, and this is the, obviously the lesser version of it. I would, because the original one is higher ranked, but this is number 100, Roll for the Galaxy. Roll for the Galaxy is I would say it's not like it's Castles of Burgundy, the dice game. Yeah, it's not like that, but it is the dice version or a dice implementation of Race for the Galaxy. I've played this game a few different times. When I played it when it first came out, Dan and I would play it, and it was okay the first time I played it, but subsequent plays, I enjoyed it less and less, and I've sold my copy of it now. I don't know what it is. I hate to always say, well, theme doesn't do anything for me, but the theme doesn't do anything for me on this game. But it's more than that, because I like the idea of contracts and fulfilling contracts. And, it has that, I believe it has that following mechanism in it where you can chain off of what other people are doing. But I really don't enjoy games with player screens that it says I play with people I don't trust, where I just always feel like everyone else's turns are much better than mine, and they're really good at rolling dice, that sort of thing. I don't know. And I hated the dice in this game. This tiny little, I don't know what size they are, but they're like minuscule. It was just something about this game that, like I said, when I first got it, because I thought, oh, the box cover looks amazing. Oh, this is gonna be so much better than Race for the Galaxy. And I had never played Race for the Galaxy before, and I thought this is why go backwards, right? Like Graham would say, why go back and try the original boring version? This is the new, 2.0. This is for the gamers of the 21st century, not those old fogies playing Race for the Galaxy. And man, I was okay the first time, and then not okay, and then I just don't want to play this again and get rid of it. So I would be shocked if it's not on your list, but I know you don't enjoy the game, but I guess you didn't enjoy it enough to make the top 5.
Yeah, this one did not make my list.
Okay, honestly, I'm surprised it's a number 100. I don't get that, but whatever.
Yeah, I don't like the game, but I think I don't like the game because I like the original so much better.
Right.
I think if I had never played either one and I played it, I think I would enjoy it a lot more. So I'm not going to say, for me, is if I want to play Race for the Galaxy, I'm going to play Race for the Galaxy. I don't need a dice version of it that kind of gives me the same feel. I also I own New Frontiers as well, which is another kind of game set in the thing. When I played Roll for the Galaxy, it's like, okay, this has increased the randomness because the dice to roll for Race for the Galaxy, which I don't like. So why am I playing this? Right. Why don't I just go back and play Race for the Galaxy? So that's why I didn't make my list, because it's not like because there's a couple of games coming up on my list which I really dislike. I have a vehement reaction to because of how much I dislike it. This one is just sort of, why would I bother playing it?
Right. No, I get that, and I'm interested in playing like New Frontiers because I think it looks cool, but I don't know, something about this one just it I think it was the hype of it when it first came out. Not that it was like touted as being the greatest game ever, but it was the hype of it's new, it's going to be a better version than the original. Because I'd always heard great things about Race for the Galaxy, but I had always heard, if you're coming in now, you are behind a steep learning curve to everyone else who's mastered this game.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, this will be the leveling ground, right? Now we're coming in as equals. Yeah, not for me.
But you're right that when it came out, people were saying, oh, I like this so much better than Race for the Galaxy.
Oh yeah, it's a Race for the Galaxy killer.
Yeah, but now you're seeing that those people are kind of switching back to say, you know what, I think I actually do prefer, the new shyness is worn off on Roll for the Galaxy. I still prefer Race for the Galaxy.
I mean, you old people, you like what you like.
We're just set in our ways. Bring me my Werther's original.
Yeah, you'll try a new cereal, but sooner or later, you always go back to cream of wheat. All right, what's your number 3?
So my number 3, so this is where, so the first 2 ones were maybe more disappointments, or I'd be, could be willing to try it again. When we move up to my 3, 2, and 1, these are games I really dislike. So number 3 for me is Twilight Imperium. So I played Twilight Imperium 4th edition, taught by an excellent teacher. So there's no, I didn't, it's not like I was caught off blindsided like I was for PAX Premier. Had an excellent teacher. We played through the game. We played the full player count complement. So I think there were 6 of us. I think there was. And the game is just way too long, too slow. And I was building up my fleet for like an hour and a half. I said, okay, I'm going to go and attack Dean's planet. Because I need to do something. I need to be able to travel and kind of get to different planets. So Dean says, oh yeah, I have, don't forget, I have these artillery guns like on an outer planet that are going to get first shot before you can attack my base planet. Okay, no problem. Oh, your fleet's gone. Gee, I just spent an hour and a half building that up. So now I get to spend another 2 hours wasting my time building up my thing again. Okay, that was a fluke.
Well, that's a great thing about TI4. You have 6 to 8 hours to build stuff up. Yeah.
So, okay, that was a fluke. Shouldn't happen again. Let's play it again. So we actually got together for another game later on, and I played the humans the first time, and humans were pretty boring to play because there's nothing special about them. There's kind of whatever. So the next time I played someone that got technology from battling other people, so I needed to go into battle. I lost every single battle. It just, because it is so dice driven. I'm bad at rolling dice. I don't know how you can be bad at rolling dice. I just am. But it was just frustrating. You spent so much time building this up and so much time going, okay, let's reset to 0 because I've lost this battle. It's just, I think if this was an hour and a half to 2 hour game, I might have a different opinion of it. But because it lasted for 5-6 hours with a full complement, I'm thinking, why the hell do people like this game? If you're winning, I'm sure it's great. If you're winning for the entire 6 hours, it's great. You're crushing everybody. But if you're being crushed for 6 hours, that's just not fun. And both games I played were, especially the first game, I was crushed for 6 hours. The second game was just sort of, I need to be battling, so I guess I'll battle you because you're close to my home thing. And oh, you're really powerful. So, okay. Again, nothing against the people I played it with. They seem to really enjoy it. And I guess I can see, because there also is some negotiation in there. Mm-hmm. Because there are some of the laws or whatever that come up you have to vote on, and there's some strategy to that as well. That part was interesting, but that was, out of the 6 hours, that was like an hour. So the rest of the 5 hours were just, it felt like for me just kind of twiddling my thumbs going, okay, this round I'm going to build ships, or I'm going to do this other minor thing. I just didn't find the rest of the game engaging enough for me to want to sit there for that length of time. So this is my number 3, Twilight Imperium. I think I've only played 4th edition. Although if the person that taught me the game listens to this podcast, they can probably correct me whether I played 3rd or 4th edition.
Yeah, that's another one I haven't played. So maybe I should add that to my list of classics that I should try. Although I that seems to be the big Ameritrash game that everyone says, oh, you got to play this one. But I will say, I'm not a space guy. I don't get my jollies off by, Ameritrash games with a lot of minis, dudes on a map, and whether it's, people or spaceships or whatever. Yeah. And while I am okay with tech trees and stuff, I mean, first to a certain degree, that's also not something that like I salivate over. So I would venture to guess I wouldn't enjoy it, because at 5 to 6 hours, I'd probably be thinking, I could be playing a coin game, or, a war game, or painting the picket fence, whatever it is.
And I will say, at 6 hours, we were moving pretty quickly too, because the game, it says it's between 4 and 8 hours.
Right.
And it's, it's a heavier game. It is one of the only games I've played which actually felt epic in scope, but it is an Ameritrash game. Yeah. So it is highly, highly random. And as we said before, you notice a lot, this has been occurring a lot this episode. I don't like high degrees of randomness in my games.
Yeah.
So to make me sit through a 6 to 8 hour game, which is 75% random, with dice rolls, it's like no.
Yeah, I'll go to a casino for 8 hours versus playing TI4. But again, I mean, there are people that, I mean, the thought of being able to get together and play that game over an entire day, that is the pinnacle of their gaming experience. And maybe there are people that do it every weekend. I don't know, but they get together cons and do it. So God bless them. It's just, just like they don't want to sit down and play a coin game. I probably don't want to play that game, but I can't say for sure because I've never tried it. All right. My number 3 is a game that we played together. Did we play it twice? Once? I think maybe just once. That's the only time I played it. I don't own it. Don't have any desire to own it. I would maybe play it again, but I wouldn't say that I didn't find it enjoyable. I found it enjoyable from the camaraderie of playing it, but I didn't enjoy the actual game itself as far as the mechanisms and all that kind of stuff.
Have I played it? Sorry, do I like it?
I think so. I think we played it together. Maybe you didn't participate in it. It was at Origins one year. I don't think it was your copy. I think it was someone else's copy. Anyways, the game is Mechs versus Minions.
Oh yeah, it wasn't I? You had started playing that at Origins. I came in kind of halfway through your game and sat down and watched it. Yeah.
So Mechs versus Minions, put out by, is that Riot Games?
Yeah.
Is that who did that? I guess it's based on an IP of one of their video games. So this is a programming game. And that right there, I mean, I don't hate programming games. I don't like gravitate towards them. But to me, this was the kind of the epitome of what a programming game is that is a lot of time and effort and planning, and just to watch it all go, down the toilet. So in this game, I mean, I think it's a co-op game from what I remember. And I guess are you progressing through a campaign or just different scenario levels?
There is an overarching campaign, but you don't have to play it in order. It gets slightly more complex as you go on, but you can say, let's go back and play number 3 again. That's fine.
And so it's a combination of the programming and then I guess, what you call it, deck building? Because you are trying to, like, I don't know if you purchase the cards, but you somehow get cards to add into your hand for the programming aspect. And I don't remember exactly if it just seems like everyone has a chance of affecting everyone else by either what they do or what they don't do properly. And it's a lot of chaos. I mean, in my book, it was very chaotic. It was very like kind of banging your head against the wall sort of thing to try to get anything accomplished. And everyone else seemed to be loving it and having a good time. So I'm sure, again, it's highly ranked. It's number 49 overall. Like you said, I'm definitely an outlier on this. I could probably be persuaded to play it again, but I did not enjoy the play that I had of it. And I've never even contemplated purchasing the game.
Yeah, so I didn't play with you, but I probably played the game 15 to 20 times. It's not my favorite game, but there are 2 people that I play with that really, really enjoy it. And for Jack, it's one of his default. If we ever ask Jack what game he wants to play, he's kind of default to say, well, we can always play Mechs and Minions because he enjoys it. Because I think you have to go into it with it's going to be a fun, silly game. This isn't a deep strategic game. You kind of have to roll with the punches. And so at the beginning of a round, you're going to be dealing out so many cards based on the number of players, and you're timed, and everybody has to make a decision what cards they're going to take. So again, it's cooperative. So Dean's going to say, well, I really need to strengthen up my saw, so I'll take the buzz saw. And someone else says, well, I'm stuck in a corner. I need to be able to turn around, so I'm going to take the movement card, that type of thing. And you're always running and once that's all done, then you go in player order, and everybody kind of runs off their program. And the ongoing joke is whenever we played with Megan would get stuck in a corner and just, I turn 90 degrees and run into the wall, and then turn another 90 degrees and run into the wall again. And then I fire off my rocket into the wall. And you have to be prepared that it is going to be a game where you are just saying, let's just have fun. And definitely the production helped in that, because it is a gorgeous production. But I think fundamentally the game is not that great. I don't think it's a fantastic game, but I do enjoy my occasional plays of it. It's not on my sale pile because I know people in my game group like it, and I will keep it because I don't have a problem playing it. I will, if you say I want to play another thing of Mechs versus Minions, I will sit down and play another thing of Mechs Minions. I wouldn't play it time after time after time on the same day. It'd be okay. This is the special one we take off the shelf every once in a while. We can play it. We pack it up and put it back on for another couple months before we play it again, because there's only so much of that I can take it. But I think for what it is, it does it reasonably well. Yeah.
And I guess in that game, we talk about randomness. It's not really random if you get stuck in a corner. You've put yourself there. I mean, but you can run into people and stuff,
Yes,
right?
you can
and
push
bounce
other
off each
people.
other.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, there's a little bit of randomness there, which kind of, but I get maybe the other thing I didn't necessarily enjoy about the game was the I wouldn't say there's even any negotiation, like as far as taking the cards.
Yeah. Because
It's it's not even first come first serve. It's like basically you just take the card and oh well, sorry, oh you wanted that? Too bad.
But I mean, there is supposed to be some talking then. But again,
Right.
you're time limited. So there's a timer in the game that when you deal with the cards, you flip it over, and then people talk. But you're right, it does go in order. And sometimes you're going to be taking cards for the ability that you get when you discard them.
Right.
But if you really, really, really need to turn, then you should be telling us that. And I shouldn't be going, well, I'm going to discard the turn one because I need to repair this one damage. I mean,
Right.
hopefully we would talk enough that you would take that. But yeah.
Like I said, I could probably be talked into playing it again, especially if a bunch of people want to play it. And maybe I just had a bad first experience, but that bad first experience is ingrained in my memory. So that is my number 3, Mechs versus Minions.
Okay. So my number 2 is, I think Dean can probably guess what my top 2 are. I think it's just going to be for him which one's above which. So this game is in Dean's top 100 games of all time. I think it's within your top 20 games of all time, I want to say. This is by the Italian design group, which I like everything that they do, except this one.
Just say it.
This is Lorenzo Il Magnifico.
I can't even believe you. I don't understand how you don't like this game. And don't tell me the randomness.
That's precisely it. I've been burned too many times. And yes, it's my own fault for getting into that situation.
Yes, it is.
But it annoys me when you can have a plan that gets completely derailed for one turn because of the die roll. And sometimes it just works out for you, and sometimes it just doesn't. The game is not overly long. It's an hour to 2 hours. But there's only so many rounds you're going to be playing. And if one round is wasted because of a bad die roll, then that's what annoys me about this game. This game, although Twilight Imperium 4 probably brings more of a visceral reaction for me, this game I just fundamentally do not like. I have played this game, I want to say close to 10 times now. And every single time I play it, I think, why the hell am I playing this again? So we played it for the podcast. We played it since then because other people enjoy the game. I think I've even played this with you once or twice.
Yeah.
And I just don't like it. The reason why this is so high on my list is because I look at the game and think I should like this game. I like 90% of what's in this game, like the whole engine building. When you're adding these things to the bottom of your board and you get to run them off, but depending on what your actions you're doing, getting more people, buying the tower pieces up at the top of the board based on, if I place a number here, then you have to go either higher or lower than it. I should like this, but I don't like the dice in this. I even like was it the Pope that visits or whatever?
Yeah,
and you're having to
tract. Yeah,
and you're trying to have to decide do I give up my points to not have this bad thing happen to me, or do I try and race to the end, but it means I'm going to have a negative against me? I like those decisions. It's just it's the dice for me, and this one just really, really, really rubbed me the wrong way. Because it's like, for me, it's like having a really good Euro and then having, this kind of rotted, fetid piece in it, which for me just destroys the rest of the game.
So we've had this discussion many times. I guess I was going to ask you this, but you already answered it. Aren't all the other parts of the game enjoyable enough where even if there is that one thing that you don't like, that those positives outweigh it? Because I mean, I know the dice rolling is integral to the game, obviously, but everyone is dealing with the same dice, the same die results.
And again, I don't know why this one bothers me so much, because Grand Austria Hotel,
Exactly.
Works very, very close. And I love Grand Astral Hotel because you roll the die, whatever available you have using, like you get to use. For whatever reason in Lorenzo, I just don't like the way it's done. And I think it's because even in Grand Austria Hotel, there are ways to re-roll the dice. You pass and you take a die off and you roll whatever dice are left at the end of the round when everybody else is gone. But I do find in Grand Austria Hotel, there's almost always an action I can use there, what's left. Even if it's not my prime thing, if I really, really want to open rooms, even if I can't open a room, well, getting another character out from my hand is always a good thing. Getting more food is always a good thing. There's always maybe a secondary action, which is maybe not the primary thing I want to do, but I can probably do something reasonably good. Lorenzo, I find there are some rounds when you're like, no, I've set everything up and I need to be able to do this round or else my previous round is wasted. I didn't get the die roll, which means this round is wasted and now my previous round is wasted. And that's what fundamentally annoys me about Lorenzo.
Yeah. I mean, I get that. But at the same time, I feel like if you're in that position, probably at least if you're playing a 4-player game, probably at least one other person's in the same position, if not everybody, because everyone's sharing the die results. Yeah. But
it's like when you roll a 7 in Catan, yes, it's going to happen to everybody that the probability of being able to lose your cards and not being able to generate stuff is the same right. probability.
But in Lorenzo, if you roll bad, someone just doesn't come and swipe your entire engine off of the game board. So I don't know. I just love this game, and I think you just hate it because you know how much I enjoy it, and that's fine. I mean, haters gonna hate, but
it's funny because this is when we get to these top couple games. This is the one I've played the most, and this is the one I keep on thinking I should like and keep on trying to play it again. And every single time I play it, I go, I just don't like this.
That saddens me. All right, so that was your number 2, right?
Yeah.
All right, so my number 2 is a game that will probably come to no shock to you that I don't enjoy it. And again, I've said maybe I should try it again because I've only played it the one time, but the one time I played it was like you have that visceral reaction to hearing, the title of Lorenzo. I have that same reaction when I hear the name Power Grid. Power Grid, ranked number 47. This game is a combination of I don't enjoy the math aspect of it. I feel like I'm at a disadvantage of the math aspect of it because it really is about optimal bidding in this game is what it comes down to. And couple that with the fact that when the only time I played it with a total jackass who was condescending at every move that everybody made and touted.
It was not me.
No, it wasn't Graham. Touted his superiority and his credentials like that meant anything in the game. So, it's not a pretty game. I understand why people like it because their minds work differently than mine. And I'm sure that if they sat down and played, a great game like Lorenzo, maybe they wouldn't understand how that game works either. But I just don't. I did not enjoy Power Grid. I'm not sure if I ever would enjoy Power Grid, even if I did play it again. Again, it's one of those where I felt like I needed to play it, or I actually felt like I wanted to play it, honestly, until I got through about half of the game and realized I don't enjoy this game and I may be up on murder charges if I continue to play in this game with this person. Yeah, I know you probably enjoy it because that's just how your mind works. You like the math aspect of it, and in a more welcoming and gentle environment, I could probably play it again. But as of now, I would say it probably, if I was going to make my list based off of how much I dislike a game, I'd say it would probably be my number 1. But I just went numerically, and there's a higher ranked game that is on my list. But yeah, that is my number 2, Power Grid.
I think your feeling on Power Grid is my I think we're reversed with our number twos. So you can't understand why I don't like Lorenzo, and I can't understand why you don't like Power Grid. Well, I shouldn't say that. I think I understand a bit more because I know the instance that you're talking about of how you play this. I think if you got your PhD, I'd be willing to try the game with you for your second time. Uh-huh. But Power Grid is, for me, it's such a great game. Like, it really is a fun game that I can't understand why you don't like it, but I understand why you don't like it. And I think if you gave it another shot, it's in a nice warm environment, sipping your warm tea and someone explain the game to you, and
maybe like in a hot tub, like, people have those water births for their children. Yeah. Maybe that's what I need. Sit in a hot tub and play it, and have a calculator, or just have someone whisper in my ear what the optimal price would be. Maybe that's the way to go.
So my number one, a game, again, that this is a game I know you like, and we've talked about how much I dislike randomness in this game. Mm-hmm. And the other thing I really dislike is not being able to do what I want to do. And that's one of the things I don't like about, Lorenzo and Magnifico. This one, other players can stop you from fulfilling your plan on your own turn.
Is it a Euro game?
Yes, it's a Euro game with dice. And you roll the dice at the beginning of your turn. You have it all planned, and someone says, "Oh, I'm going to use your die."
Toi?
Yes, this is Toi. I've played this game twice, and it's like, in some ways, it's like other games on this list. When I realize that there's a good game there, and I like 80% of the game, you're fighting the invaders coming at the bottom. You're trying to build up the churches and whatever else you're trying to do in the city. I hate being stopped from what I want to do by other players. That whole thing of, okay, I've rolled the dice. I finally get the number I want, but I go third in the turn. And Dean goes, "Oh, I also need that die. I'm going to buy this die from you." And it's like, that annoys me so much.
I'm paying you for it. You should.
I don't care that you're paying me for it. My plan got completely side railed. I can no longer do what I wanted to do because you took that die from me. And
you can't tell me that you don't get that same satisfaction when you take a die from somebody else.
Because I am not I tend to be making my own plans. This is what I want to do. If I look at the dice in front of me, I'm going to say, this is what I'm going to do with my dice, whether they're good or bad. I tend not to see, this is the action I want to do. So who has the die that has it for me? I tend to go the opposite way to say, what can I do with the dice I already have?
So you don't plan in a game. You're reactionary.
I plan based on what I have. I plan my entire round based on what I have in front of me.
You're reactionary. You're reacting to the dice in front of you, versus planning ahead. Okay, next turn, I want to do this, this, and this. I need these dice. And if I have to steal one, I'll steal it.
But you're not guaranteed to be able to get that die either. So again, if you go later on,
but you can still plan.
I'm planning with the dice I have.
You're reacting to the dice you have.
I am planning with the dice I have.
You're reacting to it.
So yeah, at Toi, I remember the very first time that happened to me, I'm like, I'm not going to flip the table, but this was like, I'm sitting there stewing, thinking, I really, really dislike that thing. And again, I think the reason why this is my number one is because I recognize that the rest of the game is enjoyable. I like what you're doing in the game, but that one rule, which is critical to the game, like, you can't play without it. This whole game is built around that potential of taking other people's dice. This is out of the two, there's two games on my list that I don't really want to play again. Twilight Imperium 4, just because of the length and I didn't enjoy it that much. Again, if someone said, "Oh, we can play it in 2 hours," I'd play it again. If Toi, you came to me and said, "We can play this in 10 minutes," I'd still be, no, I never want to play Toi again. So that is my number one, Toi. It comes down to that one thing of stopping me what my plan is by someone else taking the die, my own die, away from me. If it was worker placement, I'm fine with that, because it's a general worker placement. But that stealing my die to stop me from what I'm doing just really rubbed me the wrong way.
Well, I guess the upside is you didn't say you would never play Lorenzo again. So I guess that's something.
Like I said, I keep on thinking I should like Lorenzo, and I keep on giving another try. And I'm still
Just can't believe you.
I haven't played it in such a long time that I'm thinking, maybe I should give it another try. But Trois, it's been years since I played Trois. No, I'm done. I don't want to play Trois again.
It's very disappointing. We'll play Twa with you and Amy and Lella, and you can steal the dice from Amy. She'll throat punch you, and then she'll steal your dice and laugh maniacally as she does it and be very happy. So that's the problem, is that you're either up here or down here. You enjoy screwing other people over in a game, but you don't like it when it happens to you.
But it's only funny when it happens to someone else.
That's right. All right. Well, my number one is a game I know you've played. You've played it a ton. I've actually played it more than one time. I probably have played it, I don't know, a dozen times. I've only ever played it online. I've never played the physical version. And I keep thinking, like you with Lorenzo, like I should like this game. It's a well-respected game. It's ranked number 14. It's, it was all the rage. And every time I play it, I'm just like, I don't understand why people love this game so much. To me, I think it's very, I'm not saying it's a simple game. I'm not saying it's a bad design. I'm saying it's the same. It feels like it's the same every time I play it. No matter what faction I play, it feels very scripted, and that is Scythe. So Scythe for me is, I think I had such high expectations for it, but I literally, whenever I play it, I always feel like, okay, I need to do A, B, and C almost every time, no matter the faction that I'm playing. I need to unlock this to be able to do this, because I need to be, seems like every faction you need to have the same kind of foundational building blocks before you start branching off into whatever your specialty may be. And maybe it's because I'm playing it online, and maybe that's just how the AI works in it. Maybe it's not as challenging as real people, but the times I've played it hasn't motivated me enough to actually open my game and want to take it out of the shrink and play it face to face with other people. I probably would, but I think like you, I'm never going to be suggesting it being brought to the table, and I don't even know why I'm still keeping my copy of the game. But
this one, I disagree with you, but not as much as some of your other choices. I like Scythe, but I understand where you're coming from, because I've played Scythe, I think 10 to 15 times. And I think you are right in which, although I feel the factions do feel different, but what you have to do feels the same. And I'll give you an example. So I've played each faction at least twice.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found was, and we all found this because it was the same group of us playing Scythe multiple times in a row, that the very first thing you did was build up your army to get your army star, your battle star. Then you ignored it and went on to the next thing. Now, which one of the next things you did seemed to vary based on the faction, but that star one was the army battle. It's been a while since I played it, but that one that required military strength was more difficult to get the further the game went on. It just made sense that you just, for the first couple of rounds, all you did was just build that as much as you could, got the star, then ignored it. And then you basically let that drain down and you kind of moved your resources into something else. And again, this is just the base game, because there are, there's the legacy version of it with the Fenris edition, and there's the airships one and all that. But just the base game, I found that after those plays, I was like, okay, I'm starting to see, I don't know whether flaws is the right term for it, but I got to the point when I did have a favorite faction, but it didn't matter what faction I was playing, because I kind of knew what I had to do anyway. Like, having a different faction doesn't mean your end game goals are different. You still have to be getting those stars from the same types of things everyone else does. It's just how you're slightly approaching it. So it's like, okay, well, I know I need to get this star for, getting people out on the board. So how does this faction do that? It's not what does this faction do and how I can get particular stars for this one faction. It's more like there's always the same star to get. So how does this faction get it?
Right.
I still enjoy the game. Like I'd be happy to sit down and play Scythe, but I don't think it warrants its 14th position on Board Game Geek. I understand why people like it because I think part of it is the aesthetics of the game. It looks fantastic. I enjoy it, but I understand where you're coming from with it. But yeah, I think it deserves to be in the top couple hundred games. I don't think it deserves to be in the 14th best game of all time. So
yeah, maybe I should go and try my little Scythe first and see if that's more my might be too hard for you.
That's right. Bring it down.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you hit it or said it better is that, in this game, it feels like at the beginning, it's kind of a very narrow approach. And then what everyone kind of needs to do. And then it kind of expands out and widens as you start to do what is special for your faction. But ultimately it comes back to the same narrowness at the end, because you're right. It's the stars of the stars. No one really has a special end game sort of, thing that they can do. It's just scoring the stars. And it's all about how you get to those stars, which maybe is where the variability is. I don't know. I've only played it online. And so it just always felt very samey.
Yeah. Because the main stars you're getting don't change. Therefore, right. the factions can't be drastically different. They all need to be able to get those stars.
Yeah.
So yes, there is some variability. The player boards, of how they're upgrading and all that, do some add some variability, but fundamentally you have to be able to achieve those stars.
Right.
So you can't go off on some wild tangent with your group because you still need to be able to get those stars. And again, if those stars were variable or set, that you had some maybe generic ones on the board, but then your faction needed to do X, Y, and Z to get, 1 or 2 stars that only your faction's ability could allow you to get, that'll be different. But this, I find with the base game anyway, that I can definitely see where you're coming from with Scythe.
All right, so that's it. That's going to wrap up our top 5 of the BGG top 100 games that we don't particularly care for. That works for a title for the list. As a reminder, again, next episode is number 100. If you want to contribute anything in written form, whatever it is, hey, how you doing? Here's a couple of games that you suggested we really liked or that we don't like, whatever. It could be a poem. It could just be a pithy comment of why Graham should like Lorenzo El Magnifico. Whatever it is, shoot them to us in an email, boardgamebuffetpodcast@gmail.com. You can send a message on Twitter at Board Game Chats. You can send it to the Facebook page, Board Game Buffet Podcast. Any of those will work. Graham, what's your email in case they want to send it to you because they're saying something bad about me?
Oh, just send it to any Gmail address and I'm sure they'd forward it to me. If you want to contact me directly, fourcornersoftheboard@gmail.com or across the game board at gmail.com. Either one, both of them I check. Both of them I'm carrying on conversations with different groups of people. So whichever one works.
Yeah. And if you could get them to us by the 15th, that would be great. I don't know for sure when we're going to record. So even if you don't listen to this till after the 15th, send them to us. And if we don't get them on the 100th episode, we'll get them on a future episode as well. So I think that's going to do it for us. Anything else, Graham?
I just, again, want to thank our Patreons. You can always check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/bgbuffet. We missed doing some of the Patreon stuff last month just because it was just incredibly hectic, but we do have the new stuff mostly recorded for this month. So check it out. There's some patron only content that's going to be going up this month. And it's usually where I try and post if you want to see everything Board Game Buffet, that's the place to go. That and our YouTube channel. Definitely if you're listening to this and you want to see all the stuff that gets edited out, definitely check out our YouTube channel. Because all I do is I add an intro. I don't even add an intro. I just add the pictures for the games that we're talking about, and I don't edit anything else on that video.
Yeah. So if you don't want to hear, if you want to hear all the negative stuff Graham says about Lorenzo, watch the YouTube video because it will be edited out on this episode.
No, it's going to be edited back. I'm going to add more stuff in the video.
Yeah. All right. Well, as always, please take care of yourselves and your loved ones. See ya.
See ya.